our library.
Okay.
Yeah. So here are my questions for Mr. Coffee in Malaysia, and that is how did your father himself came up with the concept of Mr. Coffee, and that was 30 years ago, I suppose.
Yeah, about 29 years ago.
29 years ago. So, and how do you feel about the idea?
It was actually like in the business sense. So about 30 years ago, he was actually in the poultry for the chicken. And then one day, when he passed by we so-called Pasar Malam or Pasar Tani, it's actually like a market. So he saw people selling coffee, fresh ground, grinding coffee at a store, and selling coffee fresh. And then he came up with this idea of selling coffee. So he started by having a store or having like a counter at the market selling ground coffee, buy the beans or the roasted beans and then grind them and sell to the consumer. And after the market, after he has more and more customers, so he think about roasting, and hence, and after now we have become so big in supplying to the cafes, to the kopitiam, to the business user, and now we are more into like we have more different products, like usually we have whole beans, we have ground coffee, and now we evolve into coffee bags and also coffee pod. And this coffee pod is we are one of the pioneers in Southeast Asia, and in fact in Asia there are only about maybe 5 to 6 people manufacturing this coffee pod. And currently coffee pod is one of our focus, and we also expand our range of coffee in terms like the origin, the blends, and to stabilize the quality. And we cannot too heavily rely on a certain origin. We have to have a few batches of coffee. We will have to, we will need some different origin coffee, and we need to know to compensate the taste and how to be replaced if one origin has problem, or when the price is shooting up way too high. So these are the efforts we need to put on.
I see. And do you think that the Malaysian government is actually being very supportive towards the coffee industry, and is there a Malaysian Coffee Association existing in Malaysia?
Well, it depends on which category you are looking to. Like if you are talking about farmers, right now Malaysian government, they do not really provide any like so-called maybe subsidized or aid or assistance to the farmers. And another thing is because farmers nowadays, they don't really plant coffee tree because there are more jobs to do when compared to other plantation. And Malaysia are very focused in they are very focused and doing more things on the palm tree. So they are promoting palm tree and the uses, the benefit of using palm oil and all this information and to the farmers.
So you're saying that it's not sustainable to have a coffee business?
To have a coffee plantation, not coffee business.
I see.
Because when we talk about coffee business, there are so many people involved: the farmers, the traders, the roasters, the wholesaler, the retailer, and the consumer. So all these they are the very big business. But right now, for farmers and for the plantation, is not really sustainable. One of the reasons is because of the wages. Unlike in India, unlike in Indonesia, in the rural place where we call it villages, their wages are very low compared to in Malaysia. So those people live in a village, they not willing to plant coffee because the return is the return could be same with palm tree, palm oil, but the job to do, the task has more jobs. You need to pick the ripe cherry, you need to process them using the correct method, the correct flow of process. You need to take care of all these things. Unlike palm, they can just harvest the palm and then sell to another processor.
I see. Oh, so these are the complications. So is there a Malaysian Coffee Association existing?
There was. They are still there. They are still exist. But basically they nothing much they do. I mean, in terms of distributing the information, in terms of some policy making, they don't have much things. Just like an association getting in touch with the business people. Well, just now we talk about the plantation, but they also help. But the government did help in the restaurant business, like cafe. If they are more into assisting the franchising business. If you have a cafe is also a coffee business. So if you are a cafe involved in franchising, they do have many schemes or projects to help this franchise business. They help the franchisee to have a very good rate of loan to start a business in franchise. So as long as the franchisor is listed as a franchise industry business. So it depends on how you look into what industry it is. I mean, what category, like we were saying just now. So in Malaysia, we don't have taxes on coffee when you import. They don't really impose any taxes, but there is control by the government, which is they're using approved permit. So you have to be like a roaster, a real roaster, and you really need that quantity of coffee. Then they will grant you a permit to import how many tons of coffee every year.
Import or export?
Import.
Oh, import.
Because just now plantation is already the output of the cherry, the green beans, already not that much. So the demand in Malaysia for coffee is actually very high. So we have to get the source from other countries. That's we import coffee. So it's a net importing coffee country.
I see. But don't you do export at all?
We do export roasted coffee.
I see.
And also some instant soluble coffee.
But is that controlled as well by the government?
It's not controlled. For export, government actually Malaysian government very encourage export. They're very encouraging for export. But in terms of import, they do have certain control.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
And how about the sales volume, or should I call it consumption volume for the last 5 years? Have you seen an increase of trend where more people are actually consuming more coffee? And do you think that people are going for quality coffee versus mass coffee, or are they going for quality coffee, but quality and convenient coffee?
Well, it depends on how you define quality sometimes, you know. If I would say the consumption of coffee is consistently increasing, in Malaysia. But well, in Malaysia we have two categories of coffee. One is we call it traditional coffee, and one is we call it like gourmet coffee. Both category, both section of coffee also increase a lot consistently. But when it comes to quality, that is very more to personal. And people do look into convenient. Convenient is one of the what we call it, one of the elements they look into when they buy coffee. For let's say like offices, they want they are more into soluble coffee because it's very convenient, just add hot water. But those people at home, they will buy maybe more quality and they have more control over their coffee. So they will prefer ground coffee, and maybe in some executive office they will prefer to have machine. That's the market right now.
And so what is the sales percentage like, the growth? Is it something, do you see an increase between 10 to 20% annually?
10 to 20% in ground and roasted coffee, maybe about 10%, yes. But in soluble coffee increased a lot during the few years ago, during the past few years. But right now, I will see more and more people moving into good quality coffee. Yeah, because after they understand about what is coffee, then they will slowly move into better quality.
And how did that result in educating the people in the area of coffee? Or was it through the media, or is it through the result of your company's effort to promote what good quality coffee is all about?
This is actually very tricky, you know. Like in Malaysia, like we have traditional and we have pure coffee, and usually the educating side is at the gourmet coffee, while at the traditional coffee side there is no education at all. I would say that totally no, because they are more for mass market and they are looking into cost. So sometimes it's very challenging to convince the boss of the owner or the owner of the shop to use better quality coffee, and they will actually it's very challenging to convince them. They will think another $2 will be a very big leap in the price rise. So, but when it comes to the cups, it's only like 3 to 5 cents more cost. But you're actually offering better quality coffee. But they don't think that way, because I think it's probably they are more to traditional people and they have their own traditional thinking.
Yeah, but so how did you actually manage to convince the market that gourmet coffee works well for you and it will fetch you more profits on long term?
First, you have to let people taste the coffee. You see, in Malaysia, when it comes to gourmet coffee, some of the shops they are selling very high price, and sometimes in consumer wise, I think consumers they are very sensitive to the price of what they are buying. Imagine a coffee costs you about $12, but when you go to the traditional coffee, you can get a cup of coffee at $1, $1.2. So it's like 10 times more. But when they don't find out what they are drinking, they will say both are just coffee. But if they know what they are drinking and what's inside the drink, then they will slowly move into better coffee. And I think another way to make this gourmet coffee to be more popular is to bring down the price. Maybe to get more volume and bring down a little bit price.
But does your company, Mr. Coffee, did your company actually also invest in promotions, advertising, as well as investing in the retail, as well as the
we did, but we not too much, because most of our business contributed by the business customer, means like cafe, not to the consumer. But we actually look into this, and I would say it would be more efficient if both also doing the same thing. Like if we able to convince the business customer to express, to bring the information to the consumers, then there will be more and more consumers to know about coffee. And also, we cannot just like educating on the theory side. You have to let them taste the coffee, the practical side. You have to let them taste. You cannot just talk.
I understand. So what is the future for Mr. Coffee right now? And do you think that Mr. Coffee will have an impact in Singapore and Asia in a short while? Do you think that your family business also is looking into exploring into the United States and other countries?
We are actually aiming more in Southeast Asia or Asia, this region, and because we know this industry, and we know in Europe and US they have their own the biggest player in their region. So to go into a place where coffee is already mature, so it's not easy. So instead of going into the mature market, we would like to develop into the developing market side.
Awesome. So do you consider Singapore as one of the countries that's a developing country in the coffee culture,
yes,
along with Indonesia and Thailand, Laos and Vietnam? Who do you identify? Which other countries do you identify as developing coffee culture?
I would say Singapore is one of the leading in this among the countries, because Singapore has more to like a financial hub. So you have more different people working in Singapore and living in Singapore. So the demand for the different types or different for coffee is much higher than the other places. Like, well, every country they also have their own strength. Like Indonesia, they plant coffee, so it could be easier in terms of costing wise when they want to promote this good quality coffee, because in Indonesia they export a lot of coffee to Europe and USA in the States. So in terms of effectiveness, I think maybe Singapore is in the leading part because of their buying power.
So what are the plans now? So your plans is now to heavily market Mr. Coffee in Southeast Asia, especially Singapore. Is that correct?
I would say yeah, but not necessarily as a Mr. Coffee brand, because right now we are more focused in this coffee pod, and frankly speaking, coffee pod is not so common in this region. So, but another strategy we want to do is we do private label for those people who are interested in these products. So when coffee pod is more common in this industry, then everybody benefits. Then we can do our own branding, like what strength is your brand and what strength is this brand, and I'm even doing private label currently for a brand coming up in this region.
So for the last 30 years right now, what's the average annual turnover of Mr. Coffee right now at this point in time? Would you able to disclose, or if it's confidential, that's fine?
More to PNC.
I understand. So last but not least, before we close this interview, we want to find out what would be your advice for your consumers. What would be pertaining to Mr. Coffee and the products? What can they expect from Mr. Coffee? What is next? The next big thing for Mr. Coffee. Would you be introducing any new product?
We are more to of course we'll introduce more products, and we'll in two ways. One is to bring in more single origin maybe, and another is we will blend more good quality coffee.
Oh, so there'll be more blends, just like wine.
Yeah, certainly. You have we'll create more blend. Like some people they like more fruity, some people they like more bitterness, or they want stronger coffee. Some they will look into more citrus flavor, all sort of like these type of things.
Well, thank you once again for the interview, sir.